Hey, welcome back to Dunrovin Ranch in lovely Lola, Montana. It is a balmy, I just looked at the readout on our web page, and I think it's 16.3, but it feels like 7 degrees. Feels more like 10. I'm gonna go 10. It's nice actually with the sun out if you got the right clothes. And today is a big day for our horses. They get to go on their winter vacation. Unlike the ospreys who go to sunnier climes, our horses go directly across the road from the ranch to their winter pasture. They will all live there and not get ridden, not teach people how to ride, not give people their bucket list experience of horseback riding in Montana, which they do brilliantly, and they're just going to rest. I'm going to hand walk them over with Lila here, and I don't know. I think what's going to happen is that the herd that's already over there is going to run over, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to talk on the way, and I know that Suzanne, I believe, will take over partway through. So without further ado, I'm going to have Whiskey and Rocket. Lila is going to have Butte and Flynn. And that's what we're going to do. It's not too icy. It's not too cold. I think we'll be okay. Whiskey's doing his thing. Oh, Whiskey, you're such a boss. I hope wherever you are nice and warm. Or not too warm, rather, also, because I know some of you actually are in places that don't get this cold. So I've got Whiskey here on my left and Rocket on my right. And Lila has Butte on her left and Flynn on her right. And we'll probably have to do some reorganizing on the way. You know what? Guess what, Whiskey? I'm the lead mare right now, so you don't get to push anybody around. James, of course, is cam-opping. Well, I'll walk out to the lawn, and after you go through, I'll close the gate. Lila is an excellent ranch hand. And her last day is Halloween, and she is going to work up the road at a dressage barn for the winter. Come on, boys. You're all right. I know what's happening, they say. Excuse the clanging for a minute. There you go. So Lila and I are going to attempt not to slip and fall. Right, Lila? Now I've got Whiskey on my right and Rocket on my left. They're very excited. I think they know what's happening. Come on, boys. So when these horses are out in the pasture, they stay warm by doing what horses do in the wild to stay warm, by walking and nibbling. Basically 24 hours a day. Horses only sleep 4 hours a day, and it's not all at one time. They take little cat naps, as it were. And hi, Sterling Miller, ladies and gentlemen.
What a nice day.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous day, he said. So what you'll see happening in the pasture is the horses will get fed once a day, usually as close to sundown as we can get, but that can change also because we'd like you to be able to watch it in the daylight. And they get fed enough to last them 24 hours. So they can walk and nibble and walk and nibble, keeping warm. I know, guys. Oh, there's Crow. Crow's excited. Lila and I keep walking these handsome boys down the road, and I'm going to hand off to Suzanne, who can talk to you while we make our way to the pasture. I'll see you soon.
Go for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here in Kelly's office with tech guru James, nice and toasty warm, while Kelly and Lila take our horses back over to the winter field. You probably noticed that the horses in our north pasture have run over to the fence to inspect and greet them. Moving horses within a herd is a big issue, not just for the horses that are being moved, but for the other horses as well. They have a real community. A herd is a very cohesive unit of animals. They know where their position in the herd is, and when we start moving them around, they always take notice and kind of have to reorganize themselves a little bit. Our herd is very accustomed to be broken up into smaller groups because they go on rides together, they go on long trips together, and that's part of the advantage of having a guest ranch operation is the horses get accustomed to all kinds of different combinations, etc. And they seem to understand that ultimately they'll all come back together. And that's what's happening today is we're moving our horses from the area right around our ranch barn over to what we call the winter field, which is a 20-acre field that I lease from the Lolo School District. I'm very happy this available to us. The horses remain close to us. We can see them both on the ground and of course with the web cameras. And also all of our neighbors in the area just love both the people who live right here on the same road that comes down to the ranch, but also the people in the subdivision to the north of the winter field. And this year, have put a special web camera up near where the horses are going to be. It's a camera that is not as flexible as the ones that we are using with the Nest or with the ranch camera. It's a little more clunky in the way that we can move it. So it's not going to be as good at following the animals, but it will give you some really nice ground views of the horses while they're on the and we'll try to keep this in a position where you can see them frequently. And when the horses are at the end of this little alleyway behind our neighbor's house, James will switch over to a view from that new camera. There are some technical things that we still have to work out. Earlier today, James and Kelly had to go over there and reestablish the internet connection to this particular camera as our new stack of hay has gone in the line of sight. And the reason we stacked our hay where it is right now is because we didn't want it to interfere with your viewing the horses while they are in the winter field. So we'll see how all this goes. Every year, we try something new, and every year we have to adapt as we find out what works and what doesn't work. So here the horses are going to be approaching the gate in this, what we call an alleyway, over to the horses. And you'll see the herd that's already in the winter field come over and check out the horses as they make their way to that gate. And pretty soon here now we can switch to the new camera that we have. It's actually an old camera that we have had for some years, but we can switch to
That's where I'm going to have to disappoint everybody, as we stacked our hay just high enough that it blocks the antenna on the transmission in our office. And so what's happened is the camera is very intermittent, and sometimes I get control of it and sometimes I don't. And it was just fine yesterday, and today it's intermittent. So I'm having trouble establishing control of the camera. I can show you what it looks like at night. So this is what it looks like at night, but during the day we're going to use another camera for now. So yeah, unfortunately we won't be showcasing this camera yet, but it'll be up and running probably tomorrow.
Yeah, always
whenever
something.
you're
This is, you know, the rule at Dunrovin Ranch. Try something, figure out what is going wrong, and try something again. It's an iterative, evolutionary process. So there they go, letting the horses free, and I'm certain that the other horses will soon notice
goodbye.
their presence and come over to greet them. This is a really wonderful time for our horses. They are left alone the next 3 to 4 months without interference from us. They're well fed and they have free running water, and they are able to reestablish their herd bonds and hang out with each other, you know, just as a horse would in the wild. You may notice that there's no shelter over on this field, and indeed,
I'm only gonna do it like this.
we don't have a barn. It's not someplace where we could build a barn because we don't own the land. But horses have evolved in the wild in very similar conditions, windy and cold steppes of Asia, and horses do quite well under these conditions, and the way they do well is by eating a lot of food. They generate their heat from the inside as opposed to seeking heat from the outside. And they take turns serving as wind blocks to one another. The herd will oftentimes stand together with their rumps to the wind and the snow, and take turns on the leading edge so that every animal gets a little bit of time in the middle of this sort of huddle of horses that allows them to share heat and stay out of the wind. This has been a real good place for our horses throughout the years. It's plenty of room, plenty of space. It's not a very productive space because it doesn't get any irrigation during the summer, so there's a natural forage for the horses to eat. And you can see now James is showing you them running over to the other horses. Everybody's getting together to greet the horses that have just been added. They're all going to have to come over and check them out and make sure a brand new horse in amongst them. They'll just greet, and then within minutes they'll be separating out and finding their comfort spots. In the meanwhile, Kelly and
That's not bad.
Lila will walk back. At 2:30 this afternoon, we'll move the rest of the horses over there, and all but a couple of horses will remain over there for the next few months. We are going to hold back a couple horses this winter. My own horse, Chinook, will be here because he wears a special mask to prevent his eye from being affected by moon blindness. He has become blind in one eye, and we don't want to lose the other one for sure, and the mask helps prevent that. And then we have Onyx, who is a little bit underweight, and so we want to fatten him up a little bit. It's interesting because we expect the horses to come back in the spring at their top weight for the year, and even though it's cold and they aren't eating fresh grass, they gain weight because we feed them enough feed to combat the cold, and they aren't being asked to do any work or exercise. And this is the ideal thing, is to bring them back a little bit than we actually want them, so that as the season goes on, they will lose some of that weight just through the work that they do. So this is an annual cycle. It's the same thing we do year after year.
My friend until
and
the 22nd in
the
Texas.
truth is, we don't do it on a specific date each year, either taking them over or bringing them back. There have been Novembers that have been snow-free, and we've continued to ride our horses well into November. And there are other times when we've had, early winters come in mid-October, and we've had to move them before the end of October. Similarly, this coming spring, we hope to bring them about March 15th back to the barn area to start their work, get them back into shape. But if we have too much snow, we will just over there until we are ready to have them in a snow-free environment barn. So I think we'll be seeing Kelly and Lila come back here shortly down the road, and I'll pass back to Kelly. Can you show me the chat there for a moment and see if there are any questions? I've got my eye on the chat, so if any of you would like to ask a question, I'd be happy to give you my answer, whether it's correct or not.
Jasper is Crow.
Yes, Jasper with Crow. Did I say Onyx instead of Jasper? I misspoke when I talked about who was going to be over here this winter. It's Jasper and Chinook, not Onyx. Onyx has been taken back to his Idaho ranch. Took him back a couple weeks ago, and he was delighted to be back. He had been very bonded with the owner of that ranch in Idaho, and he was not a happy camper here. He was happy to go back and be with his previous owner. So let me know if you have any questions about why we do this or how we do this or whatever. Okay, Bobcat says no shaking hands with the horses. Augie and Lady Lonza hanging out together. They always do. Yes, Augie is holding his weight over there. He's in prime condition for an over 2-year-old colt. He's doing very well, and I think you'll notice throughout the winter that Lady Lonza and Augie will hang together. Family groups are very important in the horse world, and if you remember, Lonza and her mother Annie hung out for all of Lonza's life and all of Annie's life since she's had her. And I'm sure that Lonza misses Annie, and I'm sure she's very glad to be with Augie. They stay together in the wild, family groups normally do. I'm not sure. I can't see where Crow is right now. I do believe that's true. In the North Pasture, I think it is Jasper and Crow. I think those are the two that have been together in the North Pasture. I'm not exactly sure where Chinook is, but Chinook is around in there as well. So and the two that will be left after Kelly takes off on her vacation with Crow will be Jasper and Chinook. Yeah, I can see Crow there, but I don't see Jasper. He's hiding off here somewhere behind the barn. Yep, Jasper needs a little bit more weight on him. He tends to be near the bottom of the herd hierarchy, as does Chinook. And of course, Chinook has a disadvantage because he is wearing his eye mask. Lila's job will be both indoors and outdoors. She will be working at a dressage arena that is about 10 miles south of us, a really well-established and very reputable barn where a lot of people board horses. That's a horse boarding situation as opposed to a guest ranch situation. It's a place called Chapesky, and Bob Chapesky, the owner, has been teaching dressage lessons for many, many years. And I think Lila's very lucky to get a job there because it's a really high quality place. I need to walk someone down at 2:30.
There's another broadcast. So we just need to take...
I don't see... oh, there's Jasper right there. So he's in the sorting pen right there.
Unless you want to walk Mystery down.
Yep.
Why don't you walk Garnet down?
So Jasper, Crow, and Chinook are the horses that will be left here today. And then they will remain together until Kelly goes on her vacation and takes Crow with her.
And that's your time to say goodbye. Thank you. Everything's harder in all these clothes, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, Garnet's good, and then I'll take Mist and Dugan.
Kelly just had some gravel delivered yesterday. We like to even out the holes in our barn so that water does not collect and freeze sheets of ice. So at the very last moment, we were able to get some gravel. I'm sure you saw them deliver that yesterday. It's hard to find one of the guys that's going to us this winter has a good supply, so we were lucky to be able to get some. Okay, it looks like Kelly's back at the barn. Do you want to hand this back to her so she can say goodbye? Okay.
I'd love to. I've worked on my all night. Oh, all right, I'm ready. Thank you for walking with me. It went really well. The horses were very excited to go, but they remained respectful. Passed Sterling Miller on the way. There was a car at the corner who was very nice and waited for us. Actually, Lila is going to go ahead and walk Garnet to the pasture. And at 2:30, I will take a few more horses down there, and then we should be done with the winter transition. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you in an hour and a half. Bye. Ranch in lovely Lolo, Montana. I am Ranch Manager Kelly. I'm here with Ranch hand Lila, and today is a big day for our herd. They seem excited about it. Today is the day that they are officially finished taking guests on trail rides and teaching kids how to ride and teaching all of us every day about horsemanship. Today they're leaving Dunrovin and they're going to our pasture, which is just across the road there, and that's where they spend the winter months. Today through, late March, early April. It really depends on the weather and when we can start back up here at Dunrovin Ranch. It is a balmy 19.9 degrees, but you know, Lila, I think it feels like 19.8.
I think it feels cold.
She's cold. Her blanket assessment is cold, which she is correct. So without further ado, I'm going to take handsome Mr. Dugan, and Lila is going to take Mystery, who we all adore. We're going to walk down the road and put them in the pasture with most of the herd who is already over there. Staying behind, by the way, will be Jasper. For maybe not even the whole winter, but he's a little underweight, so we're putting some fat in him. Crow will be staying behind for a couple more days, 10 more days before I go on my road trip with him. Chinook will stay as company for Jasper. Chinook can always use a little more weight. And Erskine will stay behind. My new handsome boyfriend, Erskine, will stay. He might go to Stevensville to spend a few months, maybe even the whole winter, with Ben. Remember Ben? Ben's owner's wife rides, and she's going to try him out. Erskine is probably available to a really, really, really good home. I don't know. But anyway, Erskine's going to stay in Stevensville, so we're going to leave him here for a few days before I move him. So without further ado, I would love you to join us as we walk down the road with these handsome guys. Oh, Lila. Lila and I have matching things. I don't know what they're called. All right, come on, Doug. So Dugan has been calling to his herd. It was nice when I went out there to get them. Dugan came right up to the halter. Do you want to go first and I'll grab the gate behind you? I think Dugan wants to go. And I'll talk a little bit about what you can expect to see in the pasture this winter as far as feeding goes. And I will hand it over to Suzanne in a couple of minutes and she'll talk to you a little bit. Excuse the clanging here for just a moment. Good boy, Doug. Let's go. Winter came kind of early this year, it seems, and the horses haired up pretty good. They got their winter coats quickly, but we did feed them a little extra for a little while because they didn't quite have their winter coats in. What you can expect to see in the pasture this winter is the horses getting fed once a day, as close to sunset really as we can get, because that will become the coldest part of the night and then the coldest part of the early morning. And they will get once a day because we will feed enough to sustain them 24 hours. Horses are designed to walk and nibble basically 24 hours a day. They only sleep about 4 hours a day, and that's just in, cat naps, bits and pieces throughout the 24-hour period. Being prey animals, they couldn't lay down and sleep for 8 hours, because if they did, we wouldn't have horses. So the boys this winter, Chris and Levi, will be throwing hay, and you'll see them throwing something else out the window. Those are called packer pellets or packer cubes. That is extra forage and extra vitamins and minerals to keep them healthy. We are putting in, we do have an automatic heated waterer. We are adding a stock tank, and we will have a heater in that as well. So they have two sources of water, because as you know, Mickey likes to control that particular part of the pasture. Mickey being probably the herd leader out there, he likes to decide who drinks and when. I'm going to also move the trailers. Suzanne asked, it was a good idea, to move the trailers into such a configuration that they serve as a bit more of a windbreak. We normally don't have the trailers out there, but we're going to keep two out there and keep the 4-horse over here in case of an emergency. Look how good these horses are. Mystery's great, isn't he? Yeah, so I'm going to keep walking, and we're going to put the horse in the pasture, and Suzanne's going to take over for a few minutes. Back to you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Kelly. And while I'm sitting here next to James, hot and warm, in my in Kelly's cabin or Kelly's office.
He's gotten so tall.
She's out there with Lila in the
He's
cold.
taller than he was even last year.
Not bad a day. It's a very
He's probably
beautiful
done
day.
growing though, huh?
As Kelly mentioned, this is a little unusually cold for
Don't you
this time
think?
of November, or
tall.
actually late October, for western Montana. We're having a early winter cold snap, and it's the perfect time to let the horses go out to their winter pasture and run free yet again. This is a really important time for our horses. You know, horses are herd animals. They have well-established social bonds. You may notice that Lady Lonza, when we show the horses over there, sticks with her foal Augie, and that will endure throughout their lives. The bonds that horses make are very strong, and there have even been some very touching stories of horses that have been separated for many years and come back together and totally take up their friendships just like people do. It's a survival strategy for horses to cling together and to be in a herd, and within the herd there's a hierarchy of who belongs where. And in a moment when they let go of both Mystery and Dugan in the big winter field, you would probably see the other horses, once they notice what's happening, come on over and check everybody out. And that is, of course, because they are anxious to see their herd mates, but they also want to make sure that they are herd mates and not some new horse. that they don't know, and if it were a new horse, they would have to try to incorporate into their structure. There's quite a, it's like a kid showing up in class, a new kid in class has to figure out, you know, who are friends and who's available for friendships and all of that sort of thing. It's exactly the same in the horse world. There are a couple things about going over to the winter field that are important. You know, just last week we had the horses' shoes taken off, and this is a really important thing for them because the shoe kind of confines the width of the hoof of the horse, and we'd like to give them a period of time where the hoof spreads out naturally to its natural conformation. And also, shoes are far more slippery on snow than bare feet are. So the horses will go barefoot for the rest of the winter, and sometime during January or February, we will have our farrier come and check to see if their hooves have grown and are going to bother them. We do a trimming during the late part of winter. Okay. Here's going to be a fun thing for everybody. James has just switched the camera to what is our new camera on the winter field, which will give you more of a close-up view of what's happening on the winter field. It's a camera that's a little more difficult to move, and so it may seem a little jerky by comparison to the nest camera or the ranch camera, but it gives a really nice photo, and we will position this camera so that we can maximize your view of the horses when they're being fed every day by our new handy people, our new winter feeders who will be staying here, Chris and Levi. And as you can see, Lanza and Augie are coming over to check the horses out, and looks like Monty's on his way over there. And these are kind of some herd leaders, Monty and Lanza and Augie, and it looks like that may be Whiskey standing over there, trying to get in to see what's going on. You see Canner moving in to take a look. All of the horses will come to take a look and maybe even run a little bit here for a moment as they greet each other, and the horses that have not been over there get a chance to check things out and get acclimated to the pasture yet again. This is not really a pasture, it's more of a field. I leased this from the Lolo School District. I'm very fortunate to be able to lease it. It's so close to our own property, and it's completely fenced. It doesn't have any kind of pasture growing on it because it's not irrigated. But it's wonderful for the winter because it's so open, and lots and lots of area for the horses to spread out. And as Kelly was mentioning, you know, horses are really meant to walk great distances and continually eat low quality forage. And so we pick our hay specifically so we can feed them lots of it so that they generate heat inside their body, and that's what keeps them warm during the winter time. They don't have a shelter over there, but these horses have evolved in the steppes of Asia, which are really not unlike this field. Again, lots of quality forage spread over large distances and keeps the horses walking. Their digestive tracts are a little bit finicky if they are not being fed in exactly that kind of a situation. They don't do well standing and feeding for long periods of time because they need that motion to help with their digestive system. So they're really evolved for that conditions we have out there, and we try to honor those conditions by feeding them in a way that spreads the hay way out so they have to look for it, and as Kelly mentioned, throwing packer pellets that they can smell, and they will paw through the snow to get at them. They love them. There's a little bit of molasses in them, and so they really like them. And they seem to know when we're, you know, throwing them from the truck, they'll run after the truck to see if they can't get them first. But it keeps them busy, it keeps them out of trouble, and it keeps them digesting their food in a way that sustains them and keeps them warm. So I'm really pleased, James, by this new camera. It's a really high quality camera. It's not a new camera, it's an old camera. It's a camera we've had around for some time. And the reason we don't use it is its movements are a little bit jerky. The quality of the photo is very good. It's a Canon camera as opposed to an Axis that we have on most of the other webcam stations. But we'll position this so that you can see the herd more closely during the coming months while they're fed. James, can you bring up the chat to see if anybody has a question for me? I'd be happy to answer any question that people might have. Okay, Bobcat, Stevensville is not very far away. It's about 15 miles south of us. And I think that Kelly is wanting Erskine to be ridden this winter, and evidently they have an indoor arena there that they will be able to ride him. And I think Kelly's also wondering about whether she should be a 2-horse owner at this stage in her life. So she's kind of going back and forth between Crow and Erskine and kind of seeing which one would be the better long-term partner for her. So that's why Erskine is going to head down to Stevensville. So where is Kelly now? Oh, why were Onyx and Jasper beaten down by the other horses and not Garnet? That's a really good question, Celia. You know, it really depends on the individual horse and the way they present themselves to the other horses. I think Garnet did not challenge the other horses, was more accepting of his position within the herd. Onyx never really did get into the herd, was always having trouble, and that's one of the reasons we sent him back to his owner in Idaho. And Kelly reports that when she got him out of the trailer from the trip taking him back, he was delighted to see his former owner. He really felt at home there, and the owner also said she felt she made a mistake by selling him to us. So I think it was a good outcome both for him and for us. And Jasper, I think, is getting along better with the herd. He has some friends, and he and Chinook, I think, will get along very well during the time that they're going to be over here near the barn as opposed to in the winter field. Chinook is very low on the totem pole in the herd, and he has a disadvantage of having to wear his sun goggles because of his moon blindness, and also because Kelly's going to be going on vacation. I would like to have Chinook nearby so I can occasionally check his eyes. The guys who are going to be doing a lot of the feeding are not horse people, and I would not ask them to do that kind of intervention because it's not something that they necessarily would be comfortable doing. Any other questions? I'm going to comment on Celia's comment about Mickey. Mickey has, since he moved here, and that's a long time ago, I bought him as a 3-year-old, has tried to be the boss man, but he's not the boss man. He's much more of a bully than he is a boss. The other horses don't really respect Mickey. They are afraid of him at times, and he tries to insert himself as a leader, but he's more of a bully than a leader. That doesn't mean he doesn't have wonderful compensating characteristics. I love Mickey. He's an incredibly athletic horse, and he's really fun to ride in the mountains. That horse just really moves out. And with the right rider, he's very confident. You can't put a beginning rider on Mickey, though. Mickey's got a lot of spirit and, you know, kind of an attitude. He's a wonderful guy. Shall we give it back to Kelly?
Yeah, I think we can.
I think Kelly's making her way back here.
Yep.
Thank you, Suzanne. So, that was great. They really walked back well, especially Mystery, who can be a little excitable, but he was awesome. Augie came for attention. So that's the horse walking back. it's really nice that they get to have a good long rest. Our horses are wonderful. They work very hard, and they will come back full of it and fuzzy and ready to go back to work. Thanks for hanging out with me today. So our next broadcast is actually Thursday at 2:30 Mountain Time. It's a special Halloween broadcast, and you know that can only mean one thing. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'll have a special guest, or 2 or 3, and it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks again for hanging with us, Suzanne. Thank you. And me today, and thank you, Lila.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you very soon. Bye.